Hi everyone, I'm Lachlan Colquhoun. I'm the editor at Urban Village magazine, and I'm here with a bit of an economic update for what's left of 2020 and looking a bit into 2021. The first thing to say, caveat on everything, is that if the public health situation worsens, then all bets are off in terms of the economic recovery. We saw what happened in Melbourne. They were doing really well down there. All of a sudden the economy went into lockdown, bars and clubs and restaurants had to close, and it's been a bit of a disaster for those people down there, which has been a tragedy. And so if that happens up in Sydney, then we're going to be facing the same sort of thing. That's just a caveat, because the numbers seem to be pretty good. And we do seem to be getting out of this period, and the economy does seem to be recovering. But I just had to put that caveat in there so that any economic recovery is dependent on the public health situation. The good news is that according to the Reserve Bank of Australia, we are in an economic recovery right now. It might not feel like that for a lot of you, but things are improving. I mean, they do say that they had expected unemployment to hit 10%. It's only at 6.9% only, and they don't think it's going to hit the levels that they thought. In the second quarter of this year, GDP went backwards, -7% nationally. That put Australia into its first recession in 25 years. But once again, the good news is that the economy is going to grow next year by around 2.5%. That's the national picture, but we do have some data actually on what's happening in our little hood in Surry Hills, Redfern and Darlinghurst. It's interesting. You looked at the Westpac Consumer Confidence Index, which is a very closely watched national index. It was up 11.9% in October, which is the best rise in years. That's probably because they're surveying a lot of large businesses. What's happened with COVID is that smaller businesses have been hit harder than larger businesses, and the businesses that have been hit harder have been ones that we have a lot of in our area, which are hospitality, small retail, and the bars and restaurants. So the figures in our area are not quite as rosy as those Westpac national figures. The Surry Hills Creative Precinct sent out a questionnaire, which some of you may have filled out, and we've got those results here, to 3 key questions, which I think are really interesting. We had about 60 responses, which is not bad, and it gives us a bit of a spread. So we asked about the impact of COVID on their business, and 13% of you, or the ones who responded, said that their sales had increased over the COVID period. And 7% said that they hadn't been impacted at all. So that's 20% of the businesses in our area saying either their sales had increased or they hadn't been impacted. But on the downside, 37% of you said that you'd been significantly impacted negatively by COVID. And unfortunately, 12% of the businesses who responded in our area said that COVID had been an economic disaster. So then we asked then about the confidence question about what was going to be happening in the next 6 months, and it's really split. It was really interesting that 44% of the respondents we had said they were very confident about their business going into the next 6 months, that's fantastic, really. Nearly half of you saying you're confident about your businesses, but equally 42% said you're not very confident. So there's a real split out there, and 5% said no confidence at all. So it does seem to be like a dichotomy. I guess it could depend on what business you're in. If you're in those businesses that have been hard hit, that are reliant on street trade, are reliant on people coming in, then you're likely to be harder hit than if you're in a digital business or an e-commerce business, which are the ones that have really sort of boomed during COVID. Now, the last question I think was possibly the more fascinating one. We asked people how they'd kept their businesses going during COVID. 48% said that it was the JobKeeper and Cash Boost that had managed to help them keep their doors open. And that's probably pretty sort of similar to the national figure, actually. And then 9% of the businesses said that they'd managed to keep their businesses going because they'd done a business pivot. They'd changed their business in some way and managed to do something different to keep the doors open. And the next one is the one that I really do like. 18%, that's nearly 20% of the businesses said that it was their loyal customers in their community which had kept their businesses going during COVID. So I think that's really not a bad figure, really. You know, that the local people rallied around businesses and helped them. The main factor in helping them keep the doors open. And then, unfortunately, 9% said that they had run down their savings and they were exhausting their capital to keep their doors open during COVID. So that's the three questions that we put out there to members of the Surry Hills Creative Precinct. I think it's interesting if you're a business owner, perhaps you'd like to benchmark yourself against those answers and see where you sit. But certainly we're up for a very interesting 6 months ahead. Interesting. Because the JobKeeper is going to be tapering off. We're going to have JobKeeper 2 and JobKeeper 3. Less and less businesses in New South Wales are going to be eligible for those. And presumably the government's plan, the federal government's plan, is that all the incentives that they put into the federal budget will then come in as the JobKeeper measures start to come off. And that's the plan that hopefully will then transition into an economic recovery as the economy starts to reopen. But you know, there are greater minds than me out there who are looking at this, and they still don't know what's going to happen over the next 6 months. But that's where we're at. I'm certainly going to be back next time we do this and give you an update. But I'm personally optimistic about where things are going. If we can just keep the virus at bay, and we can keep opening, and we can keep supporting our local businesses, like those 20% of businesses say, then I think we're going to all get through this together in our own area. So thank you.